Hey everybody, this is Joe, the Wealth Architect, and something that is really important that we don't talk about a lot, especially for when it comes to justice impacted people, is credit. And what I find is that a lot of people, especially justice impacted people, believe that credit is bad, right? Having credit is bad. They don't want to owe anybody. They don't want to be in debt. And it's understandable that people don't want to be in debt, but credit is critical. And I always emphasize this. Credit is critical to everyone, especially for justice impacted people, because it can really build your financial reputation. Many of us grew up, depending on where we lived, but many of us grew up with check cashing places and other, places in the neighborhood that charged a lot for loans, payday loans, those type of things, layaway plans and things like that, where they had really, really high interest rates. And because we were or didn't have a lot of money, right, then we would go that route. My grandmother had furnished her whole house back in the 80s of layaway, right? So all this nice stuff, but in the end, I was too young to think about doing the math, but I'm sure it cost a lot more for her to get the big TVs, the sofas in the living room, the bedroom sets and all of that. But my point is that she got what she wanted, but so did the layaway plan people. They made a lot of money off of her and a whole bunch of people. And so for many of us, we think that having credit is bad, that we rather pay with cash. And I always say, and I'm just gonna be honest, that especially when it comes to justice impacted people, that when it comes to having cash, right, the downsides are numerous. One of the downsides of cash is that if you lose your cash, or if you're robbed, right? You're robbed, it's stolen in some other way, you cannot get that money back. So your hard-earned money, or money that was given to you, is gone forever, right? Whereas with a credit card, it's much different, because if your card is lost or stolen, you can call it in. And you obviously would call it in, call your bank or whoever is the lender, and say, hey, I lost my credit card. Put a freeze on it, or it was stolen, I was robbed, or whatever the case might be, put a freeze on it. And if you do it quickly, in most cases, the most that you will be responsible for is $50, right? In many instances, you don't have to pay anything, right? So that's one of the pluses. Plus, with cash, you cannot build credit, obviously, and you cannot necessarily use it in a way that leverages your financial well-being. Credit essentially is debt, no question about it. But if used wisely, meaning you pay off your credit card balance in full every month, then it is a zero interest loan. A zero interest loan, meaning you pay zero. Meaning in terms of interest, you just pay back what you borrowed, and that is it. And so it could be a smart way to purchase things that, not just that you need, but things that could grow, right? Because there's a such thing as good debt and bad debt. So I don't mean to be rambling, but I just want to point out that having credit is not bad. And if you want to learn more about how you can, in 30 days, boost your credit, then click the link below to find out more about the credit comeback checklist that I provided for you, that breaks down how in 30 days you can begin to build your credit. So this doesn't have to be a long-term proposition. You can build your credit in 30 days, right? And while you're at it, take a look at my credit success blueprint, which is also available by clicking the link below. And that is a much more comprehensive breakdown of how you can build credit. And again, credit is vitally important. I have several credit cards. I don't go crazy with it, right? Because at the end of the day, it is debt. It is debt. I remember when I was not in high school, I was in college many years ago, in the late 80s. And I remember getting my first credit card, applying for it. I went to a community college upstate New York, and I saw on the billboard that there were a whole bunch of applications for credit cards. That was the whole world of credit was foreign to me at the time, right? I mean, I've heard of it, but I never even envisioned myself, to be honest, having a credit card. It just was not a part of my world. And so at this time, I applied. It was a MasterCard. I forgot if it was Sears or, it wasn't Sears, but it was a MasterCard. I can't remember. And I remember it being a $500 credit limit. I thought I hit the lottery, right? This is 1989. So right now that would be worth a lot more money now, $500, than it was then. And so I applied. I got my first card. And I remember the satisfaction I used to get. This is pre Netflix, and this is when there was Blockbuster. So I used to go to Blockbusters and purchase or borrow videos, right? You watch a lot of movies and stuff, and so they would say cash or charge, and I would say charge, and my 19-year-old self couldn't be prouder that I was able to say charge because I had a credit card. And so I bought a whole bunch of stuff, not just videos, but other things with my credit card. I would swipe. And then when it came time to pay, because again, it's a loan. Credit is a loan. When it came time to pay, often I could not pay in full, right? Like a lot of people could not pay in full. And so what I would do is, like many people do, is I would always pay something. And usually I paid the minimum. On the credit card statements, it would say if you put down like $30 or $25 or something like that, that's all you need to, kind of remain in good standing, so to speak. But what they don't tell you is that the balance continues to go up, right? Because of interest, compound interest. What do I mean by that? So if I borrowed or charged $100 and I only paid back $50, on the surface it seems like I only owe $50, but the truth is that I owe $50 plus the APR, the annual percentage rate that the card charges. Nowadays, it was cheaper, still was expensive years ago. Nowadays, it's like 22, 24%. That is ridiculous. Ridiculous. So what that means is almost 25% of every dollar that I or you charge is taxed, because that's what it feels like, taxed with an interest rate of 25% of whatever is outstanding for that particular month. And as you can imagine, in a very short period of time, if you don't pay the entire amount off, then you will be paying a lot more than what you borrowed to begin with. So again, if you want to learn more and really get a handle of your credit, and you should, then check the link below for the credit comeback checklist. And also, while you're at it, get a copy of the credit success blueprint for a much deeper dive. It is vitally important that you have credit. For nowadays, even to rent an apartment, right, you need good credit, meaning landlords are checking credit scores. Even some employers are checking credit scores. Why? Because credit essentially is your financial reputation. And for those of us who do not have credit, just because they don't want to and they rather use cash, the term that is used is credit invisibility. Credit invisibility, meaning it doesn't matter if you do pay your bills on time, if you borrow from friends or family, whatever, you pay back on time. As far as the financial world is concerned, you are invisible. You do not exist. You simply do not exist. So that means when it's time for you to, let's say you want to buy a home someday, you want to get a loan for a car, you want to get a nice apartment or anything like that, or apply for a certain job, then you will likely not get credit. You will not likely get the loan. And if you do, it will be at a very high rate, because the thinking is that you have no history with credit, which puts you at a disadvantage, meaning the assumption is that you don't pay back. And I know it's not fair, but that is just the way it is. And so it is so vitally important for you to get credit or to rebuild your credit as soon as possible, so that you can not be financially or credit invisible, but instead credit visible and stable. And so again, it is just so important. I can't emphasize it enough. So let's dive a little bit into what credit is about and the different aspects of credit. So for one, there are two things that you need to be thinking about: your credit score and your credit report, right? Your credit score is comprised of 5 components: your payment history, right? The length of your credit, your mix of credit, like the different types of credit that you have, how many inquiries are on your credit, meaning if you apply for credit a lot, meaning like you often like go shopping to a department store, for example, they'll say, we'll give you a 10% or 20% discount on your next purchase if you sign up for our card. And I always say no, because I have enough cards as it is. But if you do that, what happens is there's an inquiry. Somebody inquires about your credit worthiness, and so that shows up on your report. And it could, if you do that often enough, it could have a negative impact on your score, right? So the inquiry is important. So again, it's the mix of credit, it's the inquiries, it's the payment history, it's the let me get across the street. It's the history. It is the types of credit. Well, I said that types of credit is a mix, and it's the credit utilization. How much of your credit you actually use. So you always want to stay. Conventional wisdom is that you want to stay under 30%. So if you have a credit limit of $1,000, then you should not charge in any given month more than $300. If you have a credit limit of $500, then you should not charge more than, let's say, $150, roughly, right? But in the beginning, when you're first starting out, you want to just have try to stay within 10-15%, right? You don't want to be pushing it. You just don't. Even if you've had a credit before, but let's say you now, after doing time or even having been home for a while, your credit score is very low, and your spending habits are not good, then try to stay within 10-15%. So that's really important. And so we'll talk about more about how you can do that, right? In my and another guide to talk about spending, so I'll leave a link for that below as well, because at the end of the day, what the credit score reflects, right? Your credit score reflects is behavior. It is that simple, right? This is not rocket science here, right? It's all about our behavior when it comes to money. And as I mentioned a few days ago, and in another video, I talked about emotional spending. So a lot of credit cards, it's especially with credit cards. With cash, we might be a little reluctant to spend, but with credit, it's often easier to just say, well, I don't have the money, I'll just put it on the card. And if you don't have discipline when it comes to this, it's the worst thing that you can do, because bad credit marks, especially like bankruptcies and things like that, can stay on your report for 7 years. So that is no joke. So again, if you want to know more about how you can, in 30 days, build your credit or boost your credit, then click the link below for the credit boost or the credit checklist, right? And that's the link below. Another thing is, like I said, so I mentioned the credit score. So the credit score goes from 300 to 850. 300 to 850. It's a company called Fair Isaacson Company, and they created what's called the FICO score, or FICO score, right? FICO, I guess it's FICO score, FICO, right? And basically what it is a score, an algorithm that basically reflects how good you are in paying back debt, right? How good you are in paying back debt. And that score, I'm telling you, it's up there with your Social Security card, meaning in terms of how important it is in the financial world and in your life in general. And so it goes from 300 all the way to 850. The highest you can get is 850. Most people, when they fall, unless you're like really terrible with credit, if you just start out, I remember, after doing 25 years in prison, my credit was not, I had credit before. As I mentioned, I had a credit card in college, but so I was starting from scratch, and I believe I started at it may have been 5 something or 6 something or something. I think it was 6 something, right? When I first started off, and I started off with a secured credit. Well, actually, I started off by getting my first iPhone at Best Buy, and I didn't go the secure credit card route. That's what most people do with Capital One or Discover, and that's a good way to get started, is to have a secure credit card. I started with a purchase of my laptop and iPhone from Best Buy. They report, right? Meaning Best Buy reported my payments, because instead of paying in full, I financed both of those, the laptop and the phone, and they reported that to the credit bureaus. And as a result, within a few months, I started getting applications, and I went through them. I didn't jump on the first one that came my way, but I ultimately got a credit card with my first credit card with Chase Bank, right? I'm not advertising Chase Bank, but that's where I got my first credit card with. And then I started from there, And so now my credit score, after years of getting more experience with using credit, it is in the low 800s, right? So I'm not at the top 850, but I'm in I think around 812, which is close enough, right? Which means that if I were to take out a loan, almost any type of loan, that I would be offered the best rates, the best interest rates. That's what a good credit score does for you. If you have a low credit score, then you'll be charged higher rates because you're considered more at risk, and they want to make sure that they get their money up front. That's what the name of the game is about. You want to have a good reputation when it comes to borrowing and paying back loans. That's what credit is all about. A credit report, let me just say this. A credit report will show you and basically what any bad reports, meaning any bad in terms of your history, in terms of being able to pay back on time or paying on time, right? It will show that. It's like a report card, basically. So the score will give you a numerical value, whereas a report is more narrative, right? It's more narrative. It's basically saying, Joe paid this back, and had a history. He's had a credit history for 10 years. He's paid these back on time. He has no late fees, or late payments, not late fees, but late payments. The opposite of that is that Joe always has late payments, right? He always goes over. He's in debt now, things like that. And that obviously would hurt you when it comes to taking out a loan. So the main thing to focus on here, the main point that I'm trying to make is that having a good credit score is vital, right? And companies like Experian, again, I'm not being paid for this, but companies like Experian have a boost plan, right? Where you can boost your credit. So I'm going to provide the link below to that as well. But it's in the checklist that I mentioned that you should click below. So if you want to really get serious about your credit, building it, rebuilding it, so that you can have the life that you want and deserve, then click on the links below for the checklist and for the credit success blueprint, right? With that said, this is your boy, Joe, the money. It's early in the morning. I don't drink coffee, but anyways, Joe, your boy, the wealth architect. And until next time, let's get this money.